While there are familiar places in every Animal Crossing game that typically have some sort of iteration across each game, like the store, or maybe the Able Sisters, there are a handful of locations that oftentimes are completely forgotten about. Weird locations that we got to go and visit and have an Animal Crossing-like experience, but then, for whatever reason, the location would never be brought back again in a later title. There's something really special about some of these locations, even if they were a little bit strange to say the least. So today we want to take a closer look at some of the lost and forgotten locations from the Animal Crossing franchise. We will have this video organized in the chapters, so make sure you guys check it down below if you want to skip ahead to like your favorite game, but these locations are all really interesting, so you might want to listen to them all. Let's start by going back to the very first Animal Crossing game on the GameCube and talk about the Animal Island. Yeah, this one is very unique. Firstly, in the main Animal Crossing game, if you had a Game Boy, you plugged it up and you talked to Captain, you could go travel to this little extra island. It was pretty cool. However, the one thing that was really unique about this is you could actually, once you synced your Game Boy to your game, unplug your Game Boy and get to play this Animal Crossing experience on the go. And this is the only time Animal Crossing ever appeared on a Game Boy Advance. It's actually really interesting. There wasn't a whole lot to this little mini game. You could shake some trees and get some bells, which was kind of a cool way to make it feel alive and on the go, and then you could put those bells in your actual game. But just the fact that this even existed was really unique. You had your own little islander who was there originally, and you even have some music that's inspired from Animal Crossing itself. You can hear it here. What is interesting is since this game didn't have a cartridge to it, it was just loaded onto the Game Boy itself. I think there were limitations to how much they could put into this minigame, and besides the opening music, some of the music sounds almost like maybe an Atari game. It's very, very minimal, but it's still kind of going to the tune of Animal Crossing, so that's kind of cool. Take a listen to this. And yeah, this was the first concept of like a villager on an island brought into a handheld format, something that maybe was a big inspiration for Animal Crossing New Horizons, though obviously this type of side add-on Game Boy game would never be brought back again, and we would never have this theme of secret islands brought back later on in the same manner. Now, that's not the only place that has kind of originated from the GameCube version. We can talk about the police station, which was introduced in Animal Force and Animal Crossing for the GameCube. This was interesting. This essentially was just a building dedicated to being a lost and found, and honestly, it didn't really update with items all that much. Players typically would come in there and just like take whatever they wanted, and that would be it. Maybe if you had like a group of people on a single game, they would use the lost and found better, but as far as most players experienced it, this area really wasn't used all that much. Now, this place, while it was kind of abandoned after the original game, did come back as a public works project in Animal Crossing New Leaf, though it took quite a bit of grinding to actually be able to get a police station in your town, but it was something that was brought back, and then it was removed again by the time Animal Crossing New Horizons came out. There's a couple of examples like this, like in the original Animal Crossing game, you could go into Mr. Rossetti's secret surveillance center. You had to do like a bunch of really interesting things to even trigger this to open, but that was only available on the Japanese version of Animal Crossing E+. It wasn't available in most of like the international releases that players on the West got to experience. So this concept was brought back in Animal Crossing New Leaf, and you could once again go and visit the Reset Surveillance Center. It had even appeared before that in Animal Crossing City Folk, so this was an idea that was brought back a couple of times, but each time the location looked a little bit different, though in Animal Crossing New Horizons, Mr. Rossetti's role was not even drastically reduced, but also we didn't get to go see his new secret base. It would have been cool because they kind of rebranded this character, reworked the character to be a part of the rescue service, so getting to see like the new rescue secret base would have been really cool, but unfortunately New Horizons kind of left this idea behind. We've talked about this next one a couple of times, so we'll be brief on it, but in the original Animal Crossing game, occasionally the mayor, Tortimer, would ask you to go check on the lighthouse, and every night that week you would go and turn on the light in the lighthouse. That was really cool, and you got to actually go inside of the lighthouse, which is something we haven't been able to do since this version of the game. But you know what? That's just the GameCube game alone. There's some more interesting things that have popped up over the years just on the later games that never made a return back, like Animal Crossing Wild World for the Nintendo DS. 3DS. Animal Crossing Wild World is really interesting. Firstly, there is a location that kind of counts, kind of doesn't count. It's something I think we'll talk about more in a different video, but some of you may or may not remember the Boondocks as a location in Animal Crossing. Well, it wasn't a location you can actually travel to, but it was a location where you would hear some sob story about how they can't even afford bread or something like that. They were like some starving, impoverished town somewhere else in the north of your own town, and you could donate bells to try to help them fix their economy. And it was weird, there was never really that much reward for doing this. You got a couple of little things here and there, but you would have to donate a ton of money to even help them out in one way or another. Sometimes other villagers would even talk, being suspicious that Tortimer was just pocketing all the money, so there was like this lore built around this mysterious location. Apparently, if you donated enough money, not that I ever did, they would rename their town to Boondopolis to prove that you helped them in one way or another. But yeah, this randomly donating to some mysterious town that may or may not exist no longer was included in later games after Animal Crossing Wild World. Okay, there were some interesting things. While Animal Crossing New Horizons replaced Red and gave him, you know, like this RV camper, and they gave him this nice little boat, way back in the early days, he just had a simple tent. Though Wild World took things a step further, and he would plop his tent right there in the front of the town. However, to get into the tent, you had to know the secret password. And to get the password, you'd have to do a couple of different things, either talk to your own villagers and figure out which villager was maybe a part of the secret Red family and would maybe leak the password to you, or you could maybe get a letter from Red if you actually paid the money to join his family, and he would tell you the password through the letter. You would then get to go inside of his tent and see what he had, and it was usually a small selection. Some things were usually fake, but it is interesting. Red has changed quite a bit over the years from where he's been in the series, but it seems like Wild World was the most unique out of all of them. Poor Celeste, she was a character introduced in Animal Crossing Wild World who early on actually had a pretty cool role. She was in charge of like the little constellation section of the museum, and you could look at the stars and make constellations, and then they'd later show up in your town, and that was really awesome. Though this character definitely ended up taking a back seat later on, not having the same role. In New Horizons, she just shows up and gives you a unique DIY recipe based on whatever horoscope's out there. But man, originally, early on, her role was much different, and it was interesting to have a location like this where you could kind of look up at the stars and kind of do things. It made the universe feel a little bit bigger, and I do wish that this section of the game would be added back into the museum in a future Animal Crossing title. Okay, this next one's pretty minuscule, but yeah, the front gate to your town in Animal Crossing Wild World and City Folk, it was like this medieval looking gate, and it was kind of funny. The music sounded very collegiate for some reason. I don't know, Copper and Booker got redesigned and they looked like this for some reason, literally giving this medieval vibes, but I mean, it was interesting. It was a cool gateway to your town. I think I prefer the newer ways that they handle visiting towns, like from New Leaf or New Horizons, but this was something unique at the very least. Animal Crossing City Folk did a lot of things when they introduced the city, and some of these things were really, really awesome. The number one thing that I wish was not removed from the game was definitely the marquee. It was like this theater stage place, and you could go and watch various performances. For instance, you could go see some stand-up comedy occasionally. It wasn't really the greatest thing, but hey, it was something cool to do, and I think if this was reincorporated in one way or another and they actually made a big variety of dialogue, maybe something that cycles out every month and different days of the week or something, it could be a fun thing to go and do with your friends in Animal Crossing New Horizons. Though, unfortunately, this idea was just left behind in City Folk. Also, there was a dedicated furniture store which sold a high-end furniture items called Gracie Grace, and this was amazing. Honestly, I know New Horizons shifted more to like the DIY recipes for getting different furniture items, and you have this shop over on the Happy Home Paradise stuff, but Tom Nook's store itself is pretty limited, it feels like, in New Horizons, and had they done some sort of extra store that gave you access to new furniture items every day, I think a lot of people would have really appreciated that in New Horizons, especially someone like me who's trying to make a big city in general on my island, and having more buildings to work with would have always been a bonus. But yeah, this is kind of one of those shops that was forgotten about after City Folk. They did reincorporate this slightly into New Leaf, where eventually if you upgraded Nook's store enough, or Timmy and Tommy Nook's store enough, there would be a floor added with Gracie who would sell furniture, but it's not the same as having this standalone building. City Folk also had the Happy Room Academy have their own dedicated location, which was awesome, something that would be carried over into New Leaf and then completely forgotten about in New Horizons. I mean, I guess the purpose of it was a little bit redundant redundant. There isn't anything specifically unique. You can go and look at a specific room, which was kind of neat. Other than that, there wasn't too much of a purpose, but hey, more buildings. Okay, one location that completely bombed though was in City Folk with the auction house. It was a location that would connect online and would allow you to sell certain items in like an auction bidding war to your friends. And honestly, the system wasn't really the best. It was supposed to like streamline getting furniture and like doing trades and stuff in a safer way, but it just was a long process. It wasn't really competitive in the bidding type of style, so sellers didn't really want to use it. And I think people just ended up just doing regular trades the way that they normally would in Wild World. So this thing pretty much mostly went unused. If any of you were hardcore City Folk players back in the day though and you used the auction house, do let me know in the comments. And then while we're at it, we can just mention the entire city of City Folk. This whole plaza section obviously wasn't ever brought back again. They did something kind of like it in New Leaf, but it was much smaller scale, more town-like. But yeah, this city idea though, and having a area, like a little place where you can go and look at all the shops, was something very cool for City Folk's time and something unique about City Folk, getting to take the bus in and out. It was a cool idea. It's just a shame that it wasn't really evolved over time and more just served as a gimmick of its time. I feel like if they one day did an Animal Crossing game that was a little more city focused and like the types of furniture you can get and put outside nowadays, maybe the ability to add buildings or unique buildings and then decorate the inside like you could in Happy Home Paradise and make stores or restaurants and whatnot. This could be something that people could easily make in an Animal Crossing game if New Horizons just had a little bit more into it. Maybe a follow-up game will let us design our own cities instead of our own little island. Moving forward though to Animal Crossing New Leaf, there was a lot of interesting things that were added into this game that either somewhat were forgotten or would somewhat make an appearance again in a different manner. Let's talk about Club LOL, and I loved the concept of this. Having a little nightclub in your town was such a good idea, and there was just kind of interesting little things going on. I know this was kind of the evolution of the marquee from City Folk, and it was cool. You could still see Dr. Shrunk doing his little stand-up performances, and KK Slider would go and perform, and then even DJ KK was introduced for the first time ever, and that was really exciting. And now this concept, I guess, would be kind of reused later on in Happy Home Paradise with the little water DJ performance, beachside performance. I don't know, it's like some Ibiza inspired thing. It's cool. I think it would have been cooler though if it was something that was actually on your island though, so you could go and do it with friends, because in Happy Home Paradise you can't obviously bring a friend with you to the cool dance club. I mean, it'd be awesome to get footage of this, but with like more people. I don't know what I'm saying. Now, the whole Dream Suite thing was brought back into Animal Crossing New Horizons, but it was originally introduced in Animal Crossing New Leaf. It let you go and visit other people's towns, even if they weren't playing online. There used to be a dedicated location for this, which was kind of cool, though I don't think there really needs to be because of the way that they had it in Animal Crossing New Horizons. But yeah, this is definitely a location that probably won't ever come back in the future, but it was a cool idea and a good introduction. Okay, then Animal Crossing New Leaf also was very, very robust with evolving this little main street and adding in a ton of little tiny locations that were exclusive to New Leaf and not brought back again. Now, for the most part, these individual locations would return in the form of campsite locations in Animal Crossing New Horizons 2.0. So it's not like the functionality that these locations had would be lost forever. However, the ability to go inside of the location and stand in a room dedicated to whatever was really cool. I mean, it was cool how early on Katrina had her own little tent, and then later she had a dedicated location on Main Street. It's the same thing with like Kix or Leaf, how we have a shoe store or a gardening store. It was interesting. In New Leaf, they actually added in a little store to the museum as an upgrade, one that Celeste would run. And the unique thing about this is that there was stuff discovered in the code way back when Animal Crossing New Horizons came out, suggesting that both the Roost and a museum store would eventually be added in. The Roost did come, however, we never actually got this museum store location. Animal Crossing New Leaf would also be the final game in the series to have a post office, which is kind of really sad if you think about it. The post office was kind of a staple location across every game. It's where you went and paid off your debt. It was later combined into like the mayor's office, and I think the whole purpose of the post office ended up just getting kind of phased out and replaced with resident services in Animal Crossing New Horizons, though the mail section, the main part of the post office, was delegated to a little stand over here in the airport port instead. Also, rest in peace retail. It was a little consignment store that you could go inside in Animal Crossing New Leaf. This was phased out, and instead all we get is Cyrus being able to customize stuff a lot easier than he could in New Leaf, and it looks like Reese just kind of stands there and watches. She really got the raw end of the deal, having no purpose in the 2.0 update. Okay, and then we can lastly talk about Animal Crossing Pocket Camp, which did come out before New Horizons, and it had some interesting things that are worth noting here that were really cool additions that were just not used in Animal Crossing New Horizons. I get they're different games, but some of these additions would have worked very well in New Horizons. Like, for instance, your little camper that you could decorate, that was really cool and all, and it was neat to get to go into other villagers' campers. They kind of had something with this in Animal Crossing New Leaf, which is the system of inviting villagers to your town, and Pocket Camp kind of brought that in a new way. But you also could have a cabin, which is awesome because you could decorate this big old house and then move villagers into the house, and that was awesome. You could have a bunch of villagers just chilling in some like little special vacation home or something. I don't know how that would work, but I do like the idea of being able to like build set pieces and then have your villagers like live in them, a lot like what you can do in Animal Crossing Happy Home Paradise. However, it'd be cool if it was more incorporated on the main part of the game from before the DLC came out. Okay, and then at this point in the video, you probably think, hey, he went through all the main Animal Crossing games. What other locations could there possibly be that don't exist anymore that once upon a time did exist? There were some special islands you could travel to using Nook Mile tickets in Animal Crossing New Horizons that were removed from the game in later updates. Specifically, an example of this was the Rare Flower Island. Everyone has like a set amount of flowers on your island that you can get that are native to your island, and then eventually there was like a rare chance you could land on this island using a Nook Mile ticket and traveling along, and you would find some hybrid flowers that weren't a part of the main set of flowers that you could get natively. For whatever reason though, in a later update, this specific special island was taken out of the game and later on was replaced with the Captain's Mystery Boat Tours, but there was never a replacement to the Hybrid Flower Island, and this feature ended up just going away. It's no longer accessible, and that's very interesting. And there you have it. These are the locations that are often forgot or that were lost to time across the Animal Crossing franchise. What did you guys think? Which one of these locations do you think should be brought back more than any other location? What is the #1 top priority? Let us know what your thoughts are in the comments down below. Make sure you subscribe with notifications on for more videos like this. We just hit 25,000 subscribers, which is crazy. We'll just kind of keep going with whatever, and maybe we'll hit 30,000 at some point. Otherwise, that's it for today. We'll see you all next time with a brand new video.